What is up, people? Today I'll be doing a movie review on The Wild Robot. As usual, this is my spoiler warning, so if you have not seen this film for whatever reason, then obviously click off. But yeah, this is my spoiler warning. So as usual, I'll be giving you the breakdown. Initial thoughts, positives and negatives. For the positives, going to be artistic style animation, authenticity demonstration, Roz/Bright-Bill's adaptation, and nature representation. For the negatives, going to be sped up sequences, Roz beginning/home visualization, and other animal traits. And I'll end it with my ending thoughts. When it comes to the previous animation films that I have seen, it was sadly more of the case of them being uninspiring and really not taking any advantage in creating an animation film that will be remembered for whatever reason that may be, such as the Garfield movie, Despicable Me 4, Kung Fu Panda 4, Migration, and Elemental. Just unfortunate stuff. But that is until The Wild Robot comes into the mix and breaking that uninspiring streak. This film has such an amazing impact in its overall structure and balancing its elements to fulfilling them to their best potential. Especially considering the length, just being around an hour and 40 minutes. It sure was a surprise, and this film mostly nailed it. So first I'll talk about artistic style animation. The type of style direction they went with has a good combination of a vibrant and painting look to it, really making a lot of the surrounding environment stand out in an artsy conception, which is why I loved when I found out more about the team behind in doing this style, reading on them following in the same footprints that was done for Lilo and Stitch, specifically having their background setting to be painted with watercolors, and the Wild Robot elevated on that hand-painted method. It creates this sort of loosely realistic visualization that could be seen across the film. I would always appreciate when a different method of creation is done that brings a new refreshing experience of sort, especially if that kind of risk is implemented well. Such examples being when Roz put her hand on the rock filled with butterflies and they all fly away, the animals running as the vegetation gets engulfed in flames, the opening scene of the shoreline with the big cliff as the massive wave is coming, Roz giving Bright-Bill one last flying startup as all the other geese are commencing to migrate, and when Roz was in search of all the animals during a big snowstorm. So on the whole, this risk of being different paid off, and I enjoy bouncing my eyes around from time to time to see the style before the scenes change. Next would be authenticity demonstration. This particular detail really helped in giving traits with the different variety of animals, but as well in sequences of events that take place. It brings forth this showcasing of straightforward honesty in a simplistic manner that's easy to understand, and in seeing how it is emphasized. In the case for the animals, such examples being Fink on the way he grew up in terms of learning how to swim by kicking Bright-Bill straight into the water, manipulating Roz when it comes to helping her with feeding Bright-Bill, but it was truly to serve him, and on the way that his mother used to rock him to bed with a literal rock. Another being the mother possum Pinktail on not having a lot of sympathy or even being surprised or shocked if one of her children were to die, and her own kids on not being fearful on repeating about death. A third example would be Bright-Bill on not having his actual parents to raise him due to an accident and having to swallow a hard pill when finding out the truth of Roz not being his true mother. Now looking into different sequences, these would involve the unintentional accident when Roz crushed Bright-Bill's parents and the other eggs, one of the mother possum's kids supposedly dying when talking with Roz, all the animals being put in one space that causes all to brawl it out as predator versus prey, Roz getting a rough scratch by the bear when trying to retrieve a piece of her, the constant non-stop training with Thunderbolt in helping out Bright-Bill, being able to fly properly by fall, the braveness of Longneck in saving Bright-Bill from getting shot down by a big robot shooting laser beams at them, and when Bright-Bill was getting pushed around by other geese due to the way he was acting like Roz. Taking all these different traits / sequences, the main schemes I got out of them revolves around the ideas of roughness and misfortune. And both of these were implemented in a very direct manner. By not shying away, it gives a great simple representation on not just what happens in nature, but in general, death is simply a sad reality that happens, expressing that in an honest way. Such direct misfortunes with certain characters being Longneck and Bright-Bill's parents, meeting that miserable fate and seeing the aftermath of those sequences. In mourning the loss of Longneck and Bright-Bill arguing with Roz in not learning the truth sooner. And with direct roughness, it has a play on a character's traits, specifically with Fink and Pinktail, in the sense that despite the kind of aspects that these animals may portray onto others, there are deeper / personal reasons for the way they are. Looking into Pinktail, even with the rough mentality she has on her children if they die, there is still some feeling of deeper care, as well doing her best as a mother, regardless if she makes it up on the spot, as she mentioned.
I do not have the programming to be a mother.
No one does. We just make it up.
With Fink, in spite of his selfish and hatred attitude at times, a major reason has to do with the rough life he had when growing up, from what he talked about. And that led to a very personal reason in lacking any form of being loved, or just understanding what that kind of feeling is like. Goes to show that there is a potential capability within Fink to express himself better, in that he can be loved as a result by the other animals. And all of this into consideration, the display of authenticity showed in different ways, no matter in the form of character traits or scenarios, it was well executed in bringing forth deep / intriguing topics. Next would be Roz / Brightbill's adaptation. It was enjoyable to see how both these characters, in having different beginnings and the obstacles they went through, really play out. From the crash arrival of Roz to the island, we see how she interacts with surrounding animals as she goes deeper into the island, but not fully grasping on her actions in a more understanding manner, since her main purpose was to complete any task at hand. Despite the fact in the amount of times that she was getting either rejected or roughly treated depending on the animal, such as the otter's growing concern on seeing Roz, getting hit and launched by a moose, and having her parts taken out of her by raccoons. Even just in the way she talked, it obviously had that robotic flow and not being so fluent, and not knowing on the aspects of being a mother to Brightbill. From the early stages of him, we see how he automatically attaches to Roz as her mother, and not knowing any better in her not being his own animal kind, showing pure innocence and naiveness. As he grows up, he acts more like Roz in the robotic way she acts, which sadly doesn't get good reception from other animals, in not making any new friends, even his own kind making fun of him. And as a result, there were eventually moments of realization for both Roz and Brightbill that led to their previous obstacles to being fulfilled to a greater extent. The moment Roz finally understanding about what love is, and then is expressing herself more in a loving manner towards Brightbill as a mother, and having more just care in knowing what his current status is. As well with Brightbill, in having that moment of needing to eventually push past the sad reality of what Roz did to his parents in order to become more prepared for migration, in training hard with flying, and leading to developing a more courageous / brave attitude as stuff hits the fan. Coming in as one full circle with both these characters' adaptation, and having that balance showcasing from how they were before and after. Next would be nature representation. At times, there were moments in seeing events taking place that are direct correlations to climate change and other nature outcomes, with examples being the burning forest and 2 little pop-ups of sea level rise of the Golden Gate Bridge and a whole city. Now, regardless of the varying opinions that is around climate change, I definitely appreciate in the way they represented these events without having to sacrifice the entertainment factor. It was done as visually pleasing with some events and as visually simplistic with others. And the ultimate outcome I got from it was that these were possible outcomes that could happen, and some have happened. And not only with the examples I provided that were more related to climate change or just other negative kind of events, just other scenes that are more general that helped out visually as well. Such examples being the shots of Roz walking through the dense forest, Pinktail opening a bit the purple tree to see where Roz went, and when Roz and Brightbill were imitating flying on the rock runway as you see the orange trees and cliff sides behind them. Just indicating on needing to have more care for the benefits that nature can bring, and wanting to provide solutions in order to counteract the possible negative repercussions that can be damaging. Striving for that sense of care for the planet as a whole. So now I'll move on to the negatives, starting with sped up sequences. Keeping this point simple, There were certain moments in where they had to speed up the pacing at times, specifically with the scenario of Brightbill being trained to fly, just turning into a montage of little bits of sequences of Brightbill failing again and again. It was a bit of a shame since with the other sequences of tasks for Brightbill to learn and do, they at least let those scenes ride out more and provide bits of dialogue that brought more depth to the character, even if it was only just a little bit. Wish they let the scenario just ride out more as they did with the previous ones. Next would be Ross beginning / home visualization. I think it would have been nice to provide more scenes of Roz's home and with her opening scene. In the case for scenes of Roz's home, while there were scenes of it towards 3/4 into the film of the migrating geese arriving there and of Roz finding a video displaying it as she watches it. Just more physical scenes in terms of viewing the different areas of that location. Getting that overall idea and seeing where Roz truly came from and could have represented on the particular task that is done there, and just get a little glimpse of the factory. And in the case of Roz's opening scene, added in on possibly seeing the moment of her, let's say, somehow getting accidentally thrown or shoved out of the airship, crashing into the island. I will say, not sure if this would not be following the book, but to me it could have showcased, I would say, a better dramatic opening of the procedure on transporting these robots not going to plan. And lastly, I'll talk about other animal traits. Although I got the premises that was expressed with the main animals being Fink, Brightbill, and Pinktail, more representation across other animals would have not only brought more variety, but different depth aspects about them, offering other forms of perspectives. A way could have been done with maybe Brightbill in his early stages and having just these little talking moments with other animals and getting to know them. And again, this could not be following the original book source, but could have been a possible decent consideration in implementing it in some way. In the end, even with some of the little nitpicky moments I've had with the film, the overall structure and its flow was incredibly well done. Whether it's the moments of Roz teaching Brightbill when it comes to flying, and that whole scenario just turning into the form of a montage, or seeing the before and after effects of Roz and Brightbill's adaptation, at least to me, I would definitely say that this is probably the best animation film I have seen in quite a while, and it's up there. As for the rating of this film, I'll be giving The Wild Robot a 9 out of 10. Anyways, later.